This is the intro. Hello everyone. What's cracking? Hello. I've completely forgotten how to start these videos. I don't really know how to. I mean, there's an intro, and then I kind of just. I'm not gonna think about it. I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna talk. It's been a good minute since I've done one of these sort of videos. I've been a little bit busy making some short film stuff, working and trying to earn money. And with the end of year in sight, I thought it would be a good opportunity to reflect upon some of the films that I watched this year. Not just the films that were released in 2023, but also just the things that I had the privilege of watching for the first time. As of the time of recording, as per my letterbox stats, I hate myself. I have watched 62 films for the first time this year, as well as having also rewatched 32 films. That equates to a combined 180 hours of total time spent watching films. Now, you may call that wasted time. You're probably right. I previously made a video recapping what I watched in 2022, and it was very off the cuff, and I did very little prep for it, and as such, it came across as quite sort of rambly, and I was sort of struggling to get my point across a lot of the time. I also only watched 57 films last year, and that is 5 less than this year, so suck it, Anthony. Worth mentioning that I am going to be avoiding doing a sort of a top 10 worst films that I watched in 2023, because that's not really the kind of videos I want to make, and it's not really the content I enjoy making. By all means, I'm happy with giving criticism, and if I don't enjoy something, I'll let you know about it. For the sake of this video, we're not going to be lingering on what I thought was the worst film of the year, although it was Super Mario Bros. The movie. Before we jumped into all the films I watched, as well as my 10 favourites, I thought it would be worth chatting a little bit about what came out in 2023. There are a lot of films that came out this year, and many of which I wished I was able to see, but just unfortunately wasn't able to get around to it due to a multitude of reasons, whether it was my own personal use of time, or if it was related to distribution rights and what could or couldn't come out in the UK. Some of the films that I won't be chatting about in this video that I really wish I managed to get around to seeing includes Asteroid City and Wes Anderson's subsequent short film collection, Bottoms, Past Lives, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, May December, Poor Things. I really wanted to watch Poor Things. I can't wait to watch that. Dream Scenario, Passages, Strange Way of Life, How to Have Sex, The Zone of Interest. Gutted that I wasn't able to watch Zone of Interest this year, but hopefully next year I'll be able to get there. Inside, The Iron Claw, and The Boy and the Heron was another. Those are all the films I really wish I was able to watch this year. As a matter of fact, I will be able to watch The Boy and the Heron on Boxing Day. I'm going to go to a local independent cinema with my girlfriend, and we're going to be able to watch it. It's going to be our first time seeing a Studio Ghibli in the cinema. Very excited about it, even though it also means that it might potentially be the top of my favourite lists, and then it also that renders this whole video useless as a result. But it's fine, it'll be worth it. So a lot of films I wasn't able to get around to watching, but next year we'll get on top of that. But in the meantime, let's talk a little about what I did watch this year. Worth noting, certain films I did get around to watching that I won't mention now will be brought up in my top 10, so, keep an eye out. And I think it's pertinent to start off with Ridley Scott's Napoleon, starring Joaquin Phoenix as the titular man himself, and wait a second, wait a minute, who are you? Who is that handsome fella right there? He is... Oh, it's beautiful. Yes, I know, please save your questions to the end of my speech. I would just like to take a moment to thank the Academy for this honour. In all seriousness, being an extra on Napoleon was a lot of fun overall. It wasn't always fun. There was often times these really early starts, and just the sheer amount of physical and mental endurance that was required for the long shoots and all of the mud and the shit was just, sometimes a lot to take in. But I made a lot of good friends. There was a lot of camaraderie, and we were all sort of got stuck in it together. And it was very reassuring that after all of that effort and hard-working days on set, I was still able to say to myself, I love this industry, and I still want to get stuck into it myself. Now, more crucially, how did the final product come out? Well, it was okay, yes. I have a great appreciation for the scope and for the presentation, and not to mention all the battle sequences, which are so astoundingly impressive. And it was a joy being able to see them come to life on such a scale, as well as being able to spot myself kind of in and amongst the different people as well, running around with a musket. And the performances were solid, especially Vanessa Kirby, who really managed to ground every scene she's in. But I just felt a little bit mixed in terms of what to take away and what to interpret from the story of Napoleon himself. It probably deserves to be longer as a film, which is crazy to say because it's already a 3-hour long film. But Napoleon's story just doesn't feel like it was done justice in the time that was shown in the theatrical release. And I don't think necessarily having it longer will change my opinion on it or my own enjoyment, but it just felt a little bit unfinished to me. And I wouldn't be surprised if Ridley Scott himself was also like, it's not finished. This needs to be longer. Regardless, it was a great opportunity. It was a lot of fun. I'm really grateful for it. Just the final product wasn't necessarily my thing. Super Mario... we don't need to talk about the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Moving on. I also saw... Actually, no, let's talk about the Super Mario Bros. Movie. It honestly just felt like a sort of pale representation of the Mario franchise for me. I think most of the creative choices and the storytelling fell flat to me and felt quite hollow, besides having a pretty nice animation style, and there just really wasn't much I found enjoyable about it. Now, I know I'm being a hypocrite considering my previous statement of not wanting to bash films, but, sometimes it's good to vent, and sometimes you need to kind of let out your system a bit and say, you know what, I'm not going to be nice here. I didn't like that film. And hey, Thor: Love and Thunder got the short end of the stick last year. Thor: Love and Thunder really missed the mark for me, big time. Yeah, so Mario Bros. Can take some of the heat for this year. I was so stoned when I saw it as well, so we can probably just blame my unenjoyable experience on that. But then again, surely that would make the experience better. I also saw Saltburn this year, and it was a really interesting film overall. Love to see Barry Keoghan crushing it as usual. He is really becoming an all-time favourite actor for me. Saltburn definitely worked best for me during its weirder moments where the rich people are just doing and saying the most insane stuff. I found the third act a bit messy, and it did spoil some of the experience for me. I think I just felt like it was explaining itself a bit too much by the end. However, it's all worth it for the final scene in the film. If you know, you know. The Killer was a great cerebral film that I found totally intriguing and interesting, not just for the premise alone, but mainly for the way it explores the obsessive need for details and for making things go exactly as planned. Sort of like how I script and obsessively try to get my videos in order so that I don't stumble and miss over my words. So seeing how the killer tries to deal with, his own world unraveling before him and his need to try and control and keep things in a certain way, in a certain rhythm, it made for a very interesting watch. John Wick 4 had some of the best action sequences I've ever seen in a film, and I truly love how much the film respects and admires stunt performers and action choreographers. It's truly a spectacular film, despite being, in my opinion, too long. Based on what I've heard and gauged from general audiences, I feel like I'm in the minority when I say that I really, really enjoyed Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I get the complaints completely, totally understand them, but I never expected this to match the heights of Raiders and The Last Crusade. I just kind of wanted it to be better than Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and it was. And in all honesty, I think it's a tiny bit better than Temple of Doom, and I know that is blasphemy to say, but if you're going to comment down below on how I'm wrong, please be considerate of other people's opinions, and by that I mean please be nice to me, please. Nimona was a big surprise for me. It went totally under the radar for me, and my girlfriend and I were just sort of scrolling through Netflix, deciding on something to watch for the evening, and we landed on Nimona, and it was super charming. It was a fun film. It was surprisingly heartfelt, and there was this deep message behind it of acceptance, which I really struck with me. Weirdly, it reminded me of The Iron Giant in some aspects. I can't say exactly why I got Iron Giant vibes through it, but certainly I would take that as a compliment, because The Iron Giant is one of my favourite films ever, and Nimona managed to kind of conjure and affect similar feelings within me in a way that The Iron Giant did. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have Infinity Pool, which is a dirty fucking movie. I was a big fan of Possessor, and Infinity Pool felt like a really thematically powerful film in its exploration of morality and the seedy world of the rich. It was gross and horrid, and it was kind of sexy too, I'm not going to lie. Both of those things can be directed as well at Mia Goth, who is sensational and manages to be one of the sultriest and most enticing people I've ever seen in a film, before suddenly becoming the most vile, irritating person I've ever seen in a film. Keeping within the wheelhouse of weird films, Beau is Afraid I thought was very good, and let me tell you something. Beau was afraid, wasn't he? Yeah. Ari Aster is becoming one of my favourite filmmakers working today. I loved Hereditary and I loved Midsummer, and his ability to infiltrate a character's normal world with strange horror is nothing short of extraordinary. I think despite how off-putting it can be with its running time and its incredibly blunt, garish reflection of the world, it's a film with a remarkable flair for storytelling and character building, and the overall focus on guilt at underneath the surface made for a tremendously engaging, disturbing, and oftentimes hilarious film to watch. I'd hate to take an opportunity to dig at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, considering all the superhero fatigue conversations. But I am still going to. Take notes, people. Take notes, Marvel. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is how you make a great fucking Marvel movie. I found myself running dry at the moment in terms of just the sheer number of Marvel content out there, and have been jumping every which way around all these different films and shows, and so many I've been enjoying, and so many I have not. But Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was this refreshing and cathartic experience for me. One where I was reminded of how much I loved these characters. A love that is so clearly felt through the cast performances and James Gunn's considered storytelling. I was honestly floored by the experience of watching Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and for me, it's one of the best films Marvel has ever made. It creates bold and fun set pieces without sacrificing character, managed to carry its themes with such purpose and profound emotional impact. I truly, and honest to God, cried my eyes out watching this film. I mean, that is how effective and engaging I found it to be. I truly do love Guardians of the Galaxy 3, for personal reasons regarding my love for animals, as well as for a wider appreciation for Gunn's ability to make these flawed characters so likeable. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem had a similar impact on me, perhaps less on the emotive level, but certainly its ability to remind me of my love for the Turtles shouldn't be understated. They nailed the dynamic between the brothers, and the focus on the teenage aspects combined with its fun, scribbly style animation made it an absolute treat to watch. And whoever thought Jackie Chan was like the perfect casting for Splinter, you're right. He is perfect. It's an inspired casting choice. There were two films that came out in 2023 which almost made the top 10 spot of all the films that I watched, both of which I found absolutely terrific and entertaining and emotionally resonating, but for also very different reasons. Barbie was one of them, and Barbie was electric. Hold that thought. Just gonna wear this for this segment. Barbie was electric. I mean, my head's gone crazy. Barbie was electric. The feeling of excitement I got from watching it, despite having zero investment in the product, was unusual. But a lot of my own excitement came from the likes of Greta Gerwig's involvement, Margot Robbie, Ryan Gosling. But regardless of where my emotional investment was to begin with, I was totally won over after I saw it. It's a mad, ridiculous, entertaining and hilarious film with some excellent meta-commentary and superb performances overall, especially from Ryan Gosling, who, honest to God, deserves the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor, or Best Actor. Doesn't matter. Give him an Oscar for his performance. He was incredible. And Margot Robbie as well was understatedly incredible, and her performance sort of stuck with me in a different way, and was one that, as I reflected upon, I became more and more won over by. She is wonderful as Barbie. It's simultaneously a film worthy of dissecting from a narrative point of view in regards to Gerwig's referential absurdist lens that she deconstructs the nature of Barbie through, but also, fuck you nerd, it's just a big fun time, let's go and have fun, come on Barbie! It's so distinct and unusual and paradoxical and just so Barbie, you know? But more than anything, I found that there was this deeply personal, emotive edge to the film, one that explores parts of identity and being a woman that really impacted me in a way that I wasn't really prepared for. I mean, the whole segment featuring Billie Eilish's What Was I Made For song genuinely stirred me. It made me glassy-eyed as I was soaking up all of these different feelings that the film was exploring. And as a white man who has seen The Godfather, believe me, I know film. And this was a film that made me feel things. And that's no small feat. I literally cry over every film I watch. But then there's I'm taking the shirt off, by the way. It fucking stinks. Was it worth the bit? Was it worth the bit getting out of your dirty laundry? No, it probably wasn't. Then there was the other runner-up, Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon. Now, I might have been more prepared for the emotional impact that this film would leave on me compared to Barbie, but even then I was not prepared. Killers of the Flower Moon is an epic in every sense of the word, without feeling like too much or overbearing. I mean, it has a deep, powerful sense of empathy behind its story and characters that truly transcends its superb technicalities. There's an emphasis on the darkness and terror that was inflicted upon the Osage during this time, and how that is still felt today, and all of that really hits home like a sledgehammer. It's a pain I couldn't possibly imagine having to go through, but through this pain, this film is able to call upon a light that pushes through bright and bold. I mean, there are so many moments that celebrates the Osage and shows the strength of their culture and their identity, and so that for me felt most powerful and most emphasised through the final shot in the film. Martin Scorsese never ceases to amaze me with his deftly creative eye for storytelling, but this film really felt like one of his most personal films. Not necessarily personal because it's his story, but personal in that he so clearly cares and wanted to do his part to help tell the story. And I love Scorsese so much for what he's done for cinema, and he continues to be one of my biggest inspirations as a filmmaker. So those are some films from 2023 that I watched that I particularly enjoyed. There are a few others as well that I enjoyed a lot, but I think for the sake of time, we're going to move on to the 10 favourites that I saw in the year, irrespective of when they came out. It's just my first time viewing these films. Dead Man's Shoes is extremely British and incredibly dark, but all in the best ways. I do think this film is one of the most harrowing and tragic depictions of vengeance and its corruptive impact that I think I've ever seen in a film. There is this constant threat and feeling of impending doom reflected through Paddy Considine's simmering performance. I mean, he is truly brilliant in this film and really carries this terrible, destructive need for violence in a wholly saddening way. Totally admire how this film manages to craft such sympathy and empathy for all of its characters. I mean, even for the antagonists, for as fucking terrible people as they are, they're proven to be cowardly and quite wholly human. I mean, their own injustices begin to pale in comparison to the things that Paddy Considine's character does as he begins stripping away more and more of his humanity in order to do something that he feels that he's compelled to do. It's been a while since I've seen a film like this. Something truly gritty and down to earth with its stark, bleak outlook and its depictions of violence. I mean, it's a genre that has honestly helped inform a lot of my interest in cinema early on, and Dead Man's Shoes is by far one of the most remarkably immersive films of that genre that I've seen. What a truly marvellous film Castle in the Sky is. I mean, I was a late bloomer for Studio Ghibli and only really started watching this stuff maybe around 5 years ago. Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke have firmly established themselves as my favourite Studio Ghibli films, as well as also just two of my favourite films of all time. God damn, does Castle in the Sky come so close to those great heights. The visual presentation and animation is as perfectly rendered as ever. I mean, the attention to detail and the fidelity of the animation of a Ghibli film never ceases to amaze me. But the stunning sense of awe and wonder that I got while watching Castle in the Sky just really stuck with me. I loved how smoothly all these different wonderful set pieces were woven together, especially the railway track chase scene. I mean, I found it all genuinely thrilling and exciting. It almost captured this similar feeling of like a Spielberg film, like an Indiana Jones. There was just this constant sense of adventure. The care and attention behind the design, the music, the story, and most of all the characters is superb. And I really loved this one, and I'm so excited to be able to watch The Boy and the Heron soon. I'm a huge sucker for samurai movies. In fact, I'm a big old weep. I don't care. I'm proud of it. The main reason I'm so drawn towards samurai media is less so the surface level of honour and nobility, and of course there's an appreciation for the literal kind of physical form of the outfits and the weapons. It's more a combination of the deliberate, purposeful visual representation associated with samurai movies, as well as the questions of morality and responsibility that is posed, that draws me so much towards them. It's why Seven Samurai is one of the best films ever made. It's why I love Rashomon. And more contemporary medias like Blue-Eyed Samurai have also managed to capture these similar feelings. And Sword of Doom manages to reach those lofty heights of cinematic expression that movies can only ever dream of reaching. Sword of Doom has some of the best cinematography I've ever seen, with some spectacular use of compositional framing and camera movement that gives this incredible display of artistic expression, as well as so perfectly supporting the story. I mean, the lighting too was especially beautiful with its use of contrast, especially when it becomes more expressive later on in the film. It explores some really dark themes of corruption and power, crafting a protagonist whose moral compass is so muddied and twisted. I mean, it makes for a fascinating viewing experience. And Tatsuya Nakadai carries so much intensity in his performance, he's nothing short of phenomenal. I do apologise if I pronounce his name wrong. And of course I had some brilliant action sequences with clear, concise movements and choreography, giving them a mesmerising atmosphere, despite how often brutal and violent they can also be. Yeah, samurai movies are just built different, and I think it really nails a certain style of cinematic storytelling that feels wholly unique, incredibly immersive, and Sword of Doom is easily one of the best of the samurai films that I've ever seen. Yeah, Oppenheimer really is that good. I'm definitely a big Chris Nolan fan. Obviously there's things like The Dark Knight, but the older I've gotten, the more I've come to appreciate films like Memento and Dunkirk, which I feel like are some of Nolan's absolute best work. Oppenheimer, however, it might be Christopher Nolan's best film, I don't know if it's my favourite, but it could very well be my favourite later down the line. We'll see. It really feels like such an important film, which, as pretentious as that sounds, there is something to be said about the exploration of Oppenheimer's life and the impact he had on the world through his part in making the atomic bomb, an impact and fear that is palpable and felt today. Oppenheimer's story echoes across time and space, making for an experience that is grand and epic, mesmerising and enchanting, but just so terrifying too. The exploration of Oppenheimer's mind and his history can be overwhelming, but Nolan tackles it with such attentive detail and focus that makes it a wholly engrossing experience. Not to mention, Cillian Murphy is wonderful, and he utilises his signature intensity through eyes that could say 1,000 words. Emily Blunt brings so much humanity to the film and has honestly one of the most truly powerful, commanding scenes in the film. And to my shame, I had forgotten what a terrific actor RDJ was. I mean, Oppenheimer reminded me, he's always been a great actor, of course, but Oppenheimer just really reminded me just how damn good he is. It's a superb film, and for however intense and overwhelming it can be, whether that's because of the runtime, the wordy dialogue, or the overbearing kind of existential threat that kind of lingers in the backdrop of the film, despite all of that, I can't wait to see it again and to just sink myself back into its awe-inspiring atmosphere and fascinating story. Also, Ludwig Göransson's score is a fucking banger. It's superb work. Can you hear the music? I think I can, Ludwig Göransson, and I'm dancing to it. There isn't too much I want to say about Marcel, just because I feel like I couldn't quite put into words why it's so brilliant. There is just a pureness and honesty that couldn't be done justice through explaining and overanalyzing, because I don't think Marcel himself would ever take the time to overanalyze and pick something apart himself. I mean, he would just appreciate it for what it is and admire the unexplainable beauty behind it. I found myself really touched by Marcel's outlook on the world, one that feels so fresh in its unabashed positivity and profound focus on family and community. I mean, there's a scene where Marcel sings Peaceful Easy Feeling by the Eagles, and it just transported me to being in the back of my dad's car while he played the song on the CD player. I mean, that's thanks to the power of Marcel. It's a film that feels like a hug that you never knew you needed, a hug that takes you back to a peaceful, easy feeling that you had forgotten long ago. What a special movie this is. This film has no fucking right to be as great as it was. Holy moly. For starters, the animation is terrific, and we do have to thank Spider-Verse in part for opening the doors for more expressive styles of animation, and Puss in Boots takes on that style in a way that really suits its energy and fun set pieces. The film also needs to be commended for making two very different but absolutely terrific villains. Jack Horner is hysterical, and John Mulaney delivers some absolute gems. Meanwhile, Death feels like a truly terrifying and dangerous presence, and he is never undercut for the sake of a cheap joke and retains that intensity throughout the course of the film. But past the animations and the voice acting, the music and the story, all of which is brilliant, Puss in Boots' exploration of anxiety and existentialism felt remarkably mature in its execution. I mean, it would have been so easy to have it all just be a big joke, but there is so much care behind these characters and the fears that they have, whether it's fears of commitment, of belonging, of dying. Someone who's dealt with anxiety in my own life to various degrees and has had friends and families deal with it too, I was truly touched by Puss in Boots' depiction of anxiety. I mean, there's a lot of empathy and consideration behind making it feel accurate and not trying to hide from how uncomfortable those feelings are. Surprisingly layered film that never tries to sacrifice its maturity to pander to a younger audience, nor does it try to lose sight of its sense of fun and entertainment. It doesn't matter if you're watching it with kids or with parents, I do think everyone can find something to enjoy from this film and can learn a lot from it too. Despite watching some solid horror movies this year, I don't think anything racked my nerves and set my pulse on fire as much as Shiver Baby did. The film even emphasises this feeling of genuine social horror through its music and editing, crafting these cringe-inducing, often terrifying moments where you're so fearful of what a character might say or do next and what the consequences might be. I commend the screenplay and the performances for making this such a compelling and entertaining watch. And Rachel Sonner being a particularly brilliant screen presence. I mean, the various thoughts and feelings tracked across her face during the film is masterfully performed, making her feel so genuine and real. It's one of the best examples of a simmering pop movie where everything is building and building and things can only get unimaginably worse by the end. And never have I ever felt more social anxiety and the need to escape more than watching Shiver Baby. Love the genre switching, love the performances, love the direction. There's a true sense of heart through its messages of acceptance and the futility of life in the face of seemingly no one being on your side. Absolutely terrific film. Martin Scorsese's Beau is Afraid. In all seriousness, Ari Aster had to have taken inspiration from this, right? I mean, the increasingly surrealistic scenes of a man just having the worst time ever as everything is going wrong and he is powerless to try and stop it. I mean, that had to have at least inspired Beau is Afraid to some degree, surely. Anyway, as it stands, After Hours might be one of Martin Scorsese's best films. It doesn't have that same level of signature grit that he's so well known for things like Goodfellas or Taxi Driver, but After Hours has this unmistakable, wholly unique style and tone that makes it stand out so much from the rest of his catalogue. I really love how much the film leans into these hilariously awful instances and how things just never seem to go as planned, whether it's as unlucky as money flying out of the window during a taxi drive, or having a whole case of mistaken identity as some crazy burglar. I mean, every moment raises the stakes in these hysterical but also incredibly intense ways. And Griffin Dunne as well is truly brilliant, and his spiral into complete hysteria over the course of the film is done so well and perfectly complements the downward trajectory of logic and sense that occurs over the course of the story. It's also a damn good looking film too, I have to say. I mean, plenty of shots just make me go, "Oh, that's nice. Oh, I like that. Oh." Yeah, what an amazing film this is. And again, It might be Martin Scorsese's best film. It might be my favourite Martin Scorsese film. Maybe. We'll see down the line. As it stands, though, it is my third favourite film that I watched this year. I'm going to take a moment to rant for a second. And it's not like the silly Super Mario Bros. Rant from earlier. This is about my experience first watching After Sun in the cinema. So it was a midday showing, wasn't very populated, not very many people in the screening, but there were a few older ladies that were sat next to me on my row. And they were insistent on groaning and commenting on every little thing that happened in the film. And, "Oh God, this is so slow, isn't it?" And I get it. Films like this aren't everyone's cup of tea. But funnily enough, you're not the only person in the cinema, Margaret. If you don't like it, don't fucking watch it. It genuinely irks me when people at the cinema just chat and moan and groan and complain the entire time because they don't enjoy it, rather than just cutting their losses and going, "You know what? I'm not enjoying this. But I think I'll just leave since there are other people here and I can't expect them to just share the same thoughts as me. Or if I am going to stay, I'll just keep my opinions to myself until the end of the film." To be honest, it really does say a lot when I still enjoyed this film and it still managed to have this huge, immense impact on me. It made me cry at the cinema, despite the old bints next to me going on and saying how it was just a waste of time. I mean, what are you expecting to happen? Are you hoping everyone joins you in a mutual protest against the cinema for showing such a terrible movie? Fuck you. Anyway, just had to get it off my chest. As for the film, it was really good. It is a sensitive portrait of memory that felt wholly personal while capturing a universal feeling of nostalgia. It might not be a story exactly similar to your own, but there's something so familiar about the interactions between Callum and Sophie, the holiday resort, the feelings of longing for connection. There's a wholly sweet, sentimental but somewhat tragic atmosphere that sucks you in through some transcendental music and stunning visuals. I mean, it really does make for an enchanting and emotionally powerful experience. Performances were fantastic, of course, but my God, Paul Mescal is superb in this and manages to channel this incredibly understated feeling of inner turmoil and self-destruction that bleeds through in this very human way. It is a film that captures a childhood perception of the world with such honesty and purity that I think everyone can discover something familiar through it. I know I sure did, and it managed to call upon such raw feelings within me that I honestly feel like the film changed me in some way. I couldn't say exactly how, but it has definitely touched me very deeply. And of course my favourite film of the year was my own short film. That's right, I'm better than the actual professional studios. Take that. Okay, now I'm kidding, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, you know, in some joking way or one way or another, that it was my favourite film in order to mask some sort of genuine need to show it off. But anyway, you can watch it, it's fine. You can watch it in your own time, it's fine. It's really been a good year for animated films. I loved seeing Puss in Boots at the start of the year, and Nimona was super impressive too, but goddamn does Across the Spider-Verse blow me away. This was everything I wanted and needed from the Spider-Verse sequel, and managed to expand upon Miles' story in a fun and interesting way, further exploring the responsibilities that he has to take on as Spider-Man. The animation has never looked better, and there is some mind-blowing, fantastical feats of skill behind the different styles of animation that makes for an electrifying, inspiring experience. More than anything, what I loved about this film so much was its heart and its care for the characters. Miles and Gwen's relationship is further built up and tested as the strains of being from two different worlds begin to weigh upon them. I mean, it's amazing the sense of loneliness that is felt through Miles despite everything he has seen and done. He feels totally lost and unable to find the connection at home that he had with the other Spider people. But the film cleverly plays with expectation, with our understanding of the rules and laws of a Spider-Man movie, but also emphasising the important lesson in carving your own path and not letting others decide what your story is going to be. It's truly magnificent, one-of-a-kind film that transcends past its animated medium, past the superhero genre itself, and into a whole new level of cinematic expression and storytelling. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is my favourite film that I watched in 2023. I mean, this depiction of Spider-Man in Miles Morales might just be my favourite depiction of Spider-Man ever. I mean, he is truly perfectly written, perfectly performed, such an incredibly conceived character, and I'm so invested in his story. I can't wait for the next chapter. So that's what I watched in 2023. I hope you enjoyed listening to me whittering on, and I'm curious to know what films you saw this year that you particularly enjoyed. Doesn't have to be a 2023 release exclusively. I mean, just comment below on what you've seen this year and what you'd recommend. Thank you all for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing. And that never ceases to feel weird saying that, but you know, like and subscribe if you want to do that. I hope you all have a good Christmas going forwards. Keep watching films, and I'll see you in the new year for some more film discussions, hopefully some more short films that I can make. And please check out some of my other short films that I made this year if you get a chance. They're of course all on my channel to view, or you'll be able to catch them on the title cards at the end of this video. Stay safe out there. Much love.